Hi, this is Lex, and welcome to the Fintech Blueprint. It's your podcast about fintech, decentralized finance, digital banking, investing, robo-advice, artificial intelligence, and all the other frontier technology that is transforming financial services. To get more content, like an illustrated transcript of this conversation in your inbox, subscribe at fintechblueprint.com. So without further delay, let's jump into today's episode. Hi, everybody, and welcome to today's conversation. I'm really excited to have on with us Alessandro Chesser, who is the founder and CEO of Dynasty. Dynasty is a really interesting fintech company about the easiest way to put your home in a trust. And he's also got fantastic experience in the industry, especially around the go-to-market function. So we're going to learn everything we can about how to grow a big business. With that, Alessandro, welcome to the conversation.
Thanks for having me on the show, Lex.
Fantastic. One of your foundational experiences early on in your career was at Carta, the private shares company. Can you tell us how you joined Carta, what you did there, and just high level, what were you focused on?
Yeah, so I was fortunate to land at Carta, or formerly known as eShares, as the first sales hire in 2014. The way that I ended up there was I actually was a salesperson for the incumbent cap table software product that was owned by Silicon Valley Bank, actually. Silicon Valley Bank ended up selling it to a company called Solium. Solium ended up selling to Morgan Stanley. So Morgan Stanley currently owns this old product the incumbent product that I was a salesperson for. And so that's why Henry, the CEO of Carta, targeted me to be the first sales hire, hoping that I would go rip my old customers that I had signed on to the other product. So I landed there as the first sales hire, stayed for 8 years, helped take the company from 0 ARR to just over 400 million ARR when I left. Really helped scale a large part of the sales organization. At one point, I was managing 200 people, sales org that I built brick by brick, hire by hire. And so I got really good experience going 0 to 1 a few times with a few different products, and a good experience managing people. And I, built relationships with Carta board members, and was fortunate to end up there and experience that.
Amazing. So let's take it down to the very basics, like day one at a company like that. What is sales and how did you approach it? Like when you were the only person there and now you're going out to convert all these clients. How do you approach the practice of selling and what are the core ingredients?
So Henry did an incredible job building demand prior to me joining, actually. So even though the company has 0 ARR, he had a transactional model. I think he was getting like $20,000 a month in new transactional revenue. And so, the initial go-to-market model when I got there, it was just leveraging the investors that had invested in Carta and getting them to introduce him to the portfolio companies. We really took that and we expanded upon it. When I got there, gave him the leverage to be able to go reach out to companies directly, to turn it into a subscription. That was a whole process on its own, converting Carta to a subscription revenue model versus the one-time fee model that they had when I joined. And I really pushed for it just because it was easier for the customers to understand. I knew from my prior experience with the incumbent product, like subscription revenue businesses are the best. They're predictable, especially this business. It's a very sticky product. And so I really pushed Henry to let us turn that into a subscription. And in the beginning, it was actually a really interesting story where Henry wasn't sold on the subscription model. And so he said, okay, well, we're going to continue doing the transactional model for self-signups, but now we're going to have a new ability for somebody to create a demo request and they'll speak with you and you can try and sell them a subscription. And so that's how it started. First subscription was $1,000 ARR and kind of scaled up from there to, I think, a large contract value of like $100,000 at the top end. But the go-to-market model was, we started reaching out to companies directly. We spent a lot of time with law firm paralegals, getting them comfortable with the product because they're kind of the gatekeepers. When a company raises its first round of financing and works with the law firm sets up the cap table. And so we wanted to get in there and build really tight relationships with the big law firm paralegals, because if they started putting customers on our product to begin with, like, they were going to be with us for we knew as a sticky product. So
Yeah. How did you figure out that they were the key to the lock? And then once you knew that, what was the strategy to actually like approach them? Was it you scrape a bunch of leads and email and see who responds, or these are the 5 top firms we have to partner with? Or like, how did you actually open that up?
I was very fortunate to have the incumbent experience. So I had a lot of relationships already with the law firm paralegals and partners. And so that really, and it wasn't just me that joined at that time. There was a couple other individuals that worked with me at the incumbent. So I was like the salesperson, then we had like the top customer support person, and we had the product person. So we kind of brought over the incumbent team, and the relationships came with that. So we didn't start we didn't start cold. We definitely had relationships that we had already been fostering. So we just expanded into that and allowed that to expand into the network. These paralegals know each other, and in addition to that, the more companies we got signing up, the paralegals were coming inbound to us, and they were like, "What is this? I don't even know. Is this legal?" That was the question we always got from law firms: "Is this legal? This isn't legal. You can't do this." And so it allowed us to kind of build those relationships with them on 2 fronts, reaching out to them cold and building through the network of paralegals that we had already known and partners at law firms, in addition to them coming inbound, because we just signed up one of their company, because we were also going directly to the companies, right? So we had kind of threefold approach. We were working with the venture firms, we were working with the law firms, and then we were going directly to companies as well. It wasn't one thing that worked; it was all of them worked together. It just slowly. It didn't. It took time to build that, but we had a lot of help. The big moment, after I got there and we turned on demo requests, we started getting like a couple demo requests a day, but that quickly jumped up by a viral blog post that one of our investors wrote, Fred Wilson. Fred Wilson wrote a blog post. Actually, Henry wrote the blog post. It was called Broken Cap Tables. And then Fred Wilson wrote about it and shared it. And then it went viral, and demo requests jumped from 2 a day to 20 a day.
That's a pretty big jump. You said you built the sales team brick by brick. Can you talk about what the other bricks in that wall are, right? You talked a little bit about the process of kind of demand generation, but what were the other components?
What I learned at Carta, most importantly over anything else, is the importance of business and product having tight communication. A friend of mine told me this, a mentor of mine, but he said the quality of a product and the quality of a business manifests itself in the ability for business and product to communicate. Sales can go out and I can sell whatever. I can make something, I can kind of sell ahead. That's what Henry liked to call it, actually. It was, sell ahead of the curve. That was my job. My job was to go out there and see what I could get customers to pay money for and get big contracts for. And it was, but and Henry said, "You sell it, and then we'll build it. That the engineers will build it." It's not exactly that easy, because first of all, some things are very difficult to build, and it takes time to build things. And you can't sign a customer up and get them to pay you money. Number one, you have to already have something to show them, right? So we used to, we called it vaporware or demoware. And so you have to be really good at working with product and working with engineering and having some type of vaporware for something that you are able to capture contracts for. Get people to sign up for a vaporware that can turn into an actual product within weeks. It had to be quick. You couldn't sell too far ahead. We did a lot of that, but yeah, most importantly, the ability for business and product to communicate, and we're going through that now with my current company, is the most important thing, is translating that message for what the customers will pay money for to what's actually possible to be delivered.
In selling ahead, you're essentially discovering what the customer needs, right? The demand that's out there in the market, and fishing for that demand and then bringing it back to product to build around. Were there times when that broke down and there was a disconnect, and how did you navigate that?
Yeah, so that's why we always say get Contracts, get people to pay money for it. If people won't, because you can go to the market all day and like, oh yeah, I would buy that. Customers are like, yeah, if you build that, I'll buy it. And then you build it and they don't buy it. Because I think the challenge is like customers don't know exactly what they want and what they'll pay money for. They have these ideas of like problems that they have, but like how much is that problem actually worth? So I think the clearest indicator you can get for, what, product market fit is get people to, Henry said, get people to pay us money. If they will pay money for it, we will build it, right? Contracts, money, contracts. So most important thing, if you can't get people to pay money for it, we shouldn't be building anything.
0 to 200 million is quite the range. Were there inflection points in that? Were there like kink points in the revenue curve where, you get to 2 million and then getting to 5 is hard, or you get to 10 and getting to 50 is hard? Like, how did it feel and what were the different parts of it?
It got harder and harder. I mean, when I left Carta, it was over 400 million in ARR. And like, it's the hardest now it's ever been. Like, cause you still want to grow fast and it gets harder the bigger you get. So 1 to 10 million was hard, really hard. But after we hit 10, 15 million, things started to really take off. Like, I think, one of our investor pitches when we were fundraising was just really selling into the network effect of Carta, where, the network is so tightly connected between founders and paralegals and venture investors. The network is so tightly integrated that the network, the way it works is like the bigger you get, the faster you converge it. Like you grow faster. And that definitely worked, I think, up until about, 300 million ARR. The bigger we got, the faster we grew because we converged the network. It got to a choking point more recently because, the market's not huge. So closer you get to saturating it, then growth starts to slow down.
And you have to go sideways with different products too, right? I mean, Carta was somewhat famously in the news around the private markets business and kind of the decision to move away from that and instead focus on the cap table stuff. I think you were involved in the private markets business. Like, how did Carta manage these product decisions? Like, was there any tension between trying to get bigger, but then also having to like spin up more adjacencies?
Yeah, so you're touching into a very touchy subject for me personally, and interesting. I've been on a lot of podcasts and nobody's asked me this specifically, but I was the go-to-market lead for CartaX, which is the product you're referring to. That was the reason why I joined the company. It was we're going to create a stock market for private companies. That vision that Henry sold me, I got super excited by. And so, I was the go-to-market lead for, once we finally decided to go in on building that product, the way Carta is built is there's 3 leaders of the team. It's business, product, and engineering. It's a trifecta. And so I was the business lead. And your specific question there about business and product, that was the worst relationship I ever had with product for any product that I ever worked on at Carta. We had zero connectivity in what we were building.
That's really tough.
Yeah. And I'm friends with those guys now, but we don't work together anymore. But there was a lot of tension and it was a huge failure on all of our parts. And I'll take 100% responsibility because if I fail to communicate with somebody, I blame the only one I can blame is myself. And, we didn't have the same vision for the product and it didn't work. And now they're out of the business.
I think it's one of those ideas that just is so clearly good and you want to follow it and, bring it to market. And then there's just traps littered all over. There's so many companies that have tried to do the secondary market for private equity and it's really challenging.
Yeah, there's a lot of companies that try to do it, but Carta had the data and the users, the ability, for you to be able to go in and click a button and buy shares of, name your private company. Like the only one that can actually do that is Carta because you have to be, Henry laid out the public markets and he's like, you have the transfer agents and you have the brokerages and you have the central registrar, the DTCC, and you have all this infrastructure that makes it possible for you to go into your E-Trade account and buy shares of Apple. Well, for that to exist in the private market, Carta Carta's the only one that can do that. And so that was our, we plus the network, all the users are already customers. Everybody has a Carta account already. We thought we had the natural advantage. We weren't successful.
Fair enough. And thank you for opening up about that. I appreciate it. Your Carta experience was seeing some really bright parts of scaling and then other difficulties in products and markets that were harder to navigate. How did you come to becoming a founder and taking that 0 to 1 risk again? Like, how did you encounter the idea for Dynasty and what did you do?
Yeah. So after the CartaX, after we bumped heads for like 2 years, and it took 2 years to build the product, it wasn't selling before it was built. I was like, Henry, this is not the right. So this is not the right product. And so, I finally just quit. And I said, you know what? I can't keep bumping my heads against this. And at that point, I was fortunate to experience the upswing of Carta. And so I was able to take liquidity. I sold in a few tender offer transactions. And so I could take the risk of just quitting and starting a company. And so that's what I wanted to do. I said, you know what? I'm tired of not having control. I want to go out and have control. I want to start my own company. And I had the perfect situation because my co-founders, they were ready to start a company as well. And they were people that I worked with for many years at Carta. My co-founder, Kyle, he was the very first employee at Carta. He was the engineer, the architect that built it. My co-founder, Edison, he was our first product manager. And so, to Henry's model, business, product, and engineering. So we had the three. We wanted to start a company. We had taken liquidity from Carta already. So, let's do it. And the market was red hot. Let's do it. Everybody's starting companies now. So that's why we wanted to start a company. And that's why we left after, I was there for 8 years.
So what does Dynasty do? How did you come on the idea?
We knew we wanted to start a company. We didn't know what company we wanted to start. We tossed around some ideas. I had one idea for a sales tool. I was getting close to getting interest from, a large venture firm, a partner that I know at Sequoia. I consider myself friends with. And so we were going to do the sales tool, but Sequoia ended up having a conflict and we couldn't do it. And so we didn't do that one. And so we didn't know what we were going to do. But what happened was a friend of mine, the same friend that told me, gave me the quote about product and business and quality of product manifests itself in the communication. He came up with this idea for Dynasty and he pitched me on it. And he was like, this needs to exist. Dynasty is an online trust creator. And so the idea was that, this was actually very relevant for me because I spent close to a decade working for different banks, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Washington Mutual. So what was very apparent to me when I worked for these banks was that the richest people used trusts, living trusts and revocable and irrevocable trusts. And, the rest of us didn't. Nobody in my family had a trust. I come from an immigrant family and could have definitely used a trust, could have saved a lot of money and a lot of time when people have passed away. We didn't know anything about it. And we didn't work with lawyers. And so I knew that this product needed to be democratized. And I had already, as I mentioned, I worked at Carta for 8 years. I was able to take liquidity and I started a family. I got married. I had kids and I didn't have a trust. And I, for me, of all people, I worked at the banks. I'm licensed at, a Series 7, Series 63, Series 20. I know all about this stuff. And I still didn't have a trust. I'm like, why don't I have a trust? Well, number one, it takes time to set it up. And nobody wants to go through that process. Nobody wants to go see a lawyer. And then number two, it is expensive. Even having if you know you're going to spend $3,000+ for something that, that is going to just be a lot of work on your point. In fact, the first thing I did when we thought about starting this company was I went through the process of creating a trust with a lawyer. It's actually a cousin that I have who's an estate planning attorney. And I'm like, hey, why don't we just go through this? And I never finished it because he gave me too much homework and it was all through email. And I just didn't prior. I'm like, you know what? We're going to build this. We're going to make it much simpler.
What is a trust? Let's lay some of the ground rules.
Yeah. So trust is a legal entity that you put your assets into. So you put your home, your, rental properties, your startup shares, your crypto, everything that you own, you put it in your bank accounts, you put it in your trust. And a trust is a legal entity. So you don't own those assets anymore. Your trust owns them. That trust can do a lot of things. Primarily, the most common use case for a trust is just inheritance planning. So just in case I die or I become incapacitated, I want to make sure that my assets get distributed to my family in the way that I want them to be distributed. So it's almost like a will. It's better than a will. It's a will replacement. The problem with wills is that they have to go through probate court, which means the government processes them. And so your family will have to go to probate court and will have to make a claim for the assets against that will. And that causes all kinds of friction, all kinds of challenges and family drama. The only way to avoid probate court is to create a trust. And so what happens when you die or you become incapacitated with the trust, your successor, whoever you elect, takes over control of your trust and does whatever you want with it. They could continue to operate it and they could distribute income to your children, or they can distribute it lump sum, or they can create milestones and say you have to use this money to create businesses. You can continue to manage and control things, when you don't have, physical ability to control anymore. The trust speaks for you when you can no longer speak for yourself. So that's the most common use case for a trust. That's what most Americans need. That's what my family needed. Because otherwise, the probate process takes on average 18 months. Sometimes it takes, I've seen it take sometimes 7+ years where nobody's getting any money from the estate. The families, the siblings are fighting in probate court. The money is going away to judges and lawyer fees. And, you look at some of the largest estates this has happened to. The founder of Zappos, Tony. His estate is, I think, still in probate court. It was like $800 million, and it's been there for 5+ years now, and a lot of money is going to lawyers and legal fees. And that's why, it's kind of an inside joke in the industry, but lawyers, estate planning attorneys, they will refer to a will as a lawyer's retirement plan, because you just create wills for your clients and they pass away, then you have to go argue for their children in probate court. You have to go and you make the money in probate court. And so we believe every single American should have a trust. Wills, not a will, a trust. The other things you can do with the trust is you can protect assets from lawsuits and creditors and even divorce better than a prenup. Putting your assets in a asset protection trust is more secure than creating a prenup. But it's a lot less friction too, because you just put your assets in there and you don't have to negotiate them with anybody. Like you can do that before you get married and your assets are protected. They're locked up.
When you lock things away in a trust, doesn't the trust have some sort of purpose for which it exists? Like, aren't you locking away the assets away from yourself in a sense too?
It depends on the type of trust you set up. And so referring to the asset protection trust or the trust that can save you money in taxes, yes, it comes at a cost. That cost is direct control. They have these new trusts. We actually create them in Nevada. They're Nevada trusts, but you can do the same type of trust in South Dakota and Wyoming. There's a few states that offer them. They're called directed trusts. And so the way that they work is you don't directly control the trust, but you appoint the people that do. And so you can say, okay, like I want my brother and my mom to direct the trust. And so they will serve in these trust director roles and they will control it completely. And so you don't have direct control, but you put people in charge who have direct control. So that's a newer, very common instrument for the billionaires. This is what the billionaires do. They create directed trust and they don't directly control it, but somebody that they know does. And so that was, one of the biggest things that we're democratizing is the directed trust. We're doing Nevada directed trusts, and most Americans they need the mass market product that helps with probate court. But when it comes to the directed trust, that's how you protect assets from, like I said, divorce, whatever, lawsuits, creditors, and that's how you can reduce your taxes as well. Because doing it in a state like Nevada, Nevada has 0 state income, dividend, and cap gains taxes. So that's another reason why the billionaires do it, because they can significantly save taxes. And there's additional ways to save taxes for startup shareholders specifically. mainly for founders and angel investors, is anybody who's subject to QSBS, qualified small business stock, which is a $10 million capital gain exemption. The first $10 million of capital gains in a QSBS eligible stock is 100% tax-free federally. State depends on what state you live in.
If it's in the trust wrapper.
No, everybody gets up to $10 million even without the trust. The benefit, what you can do with the trust is you can expand that. So instead of 10 million in tax-free gains, you could get 100 million or more, unlimited really, depending on how many trusts you create.
I'm really excited to learn about this. Let's anchor it in an example for, as you said, the average American, right, who's maybe not facing the 10 million capital gains problem, but is living a middle class type of income and expense scenario. What can you get the trust to do for you? Like, what are kind of the number one and number two scenarios that you can imagine somebody applying this product in their life and, after their life?
Yeah. So the two things specifically is our free product. We have a free product. Anybody can sign up for it on their phone in less than 5 minutes. There's no paperwork, no lawyers required. The free product will allow you to create a simple trust that helps you distribute your inheritance when you pass away or if you become incapacitated. Creates the instructions for speaking for you when you can no longer speak. So that's our free product. That's the most common use case. And the reason why our site is branded like the easiest way to put your home in a trust is because we're distributing that free product as wide as we can go, and homeowners are a very, very wide group that have a problem. They have to, their house is going to have to go through probate court, and so they want it to go to their children. So that's the mass market product. Put your home in a trust, and a trust for probate avoidance.
Let's say the house is in the trust and you've passed away. What happens then? Is the asset liquidated or does it come out of the trust in some way? Like, what are the mechanics of it?
Yeah, so it depends on how you set up the trust. But you can set up a trust in a way where the asset is passed. It doesn't have to be liquidated. It can stay, with the beneficiary can continue to own the house. In addition to receive a step up in cost basis, which, is huge, especially for people that live in states like California, the Bay Area, where property values have gone up in a short period of time. Like, you look at somebody that's owned a home in the past, 20, 30 years, and they have a massive, $1 million+ capital gain. If they inherit the house, they can get that step up in cost basis, which means that they can step all the way up to the current value and not have to pay any of that capital gains tax. So it's huge, for people that are in that situation. But yeah, so you can sell the house, they can inherit the house and live there and continue to live there. It's really, that's the beauty of a trust, is you have the ability to create those type of instructions for what you want to happen.
Okay, and you had the second use case coming up.
Second use case is privacy. This is for people who they own real estate, because real estate records are public. And so anybody can just Google search you and they can find where you live and what properties you own. And especially for people that own a few properties, now you're a target for lawsuits. It's really interesting the way these lawyers work. But if somebody is trying to sue you for whatever reason and they go to a lawyer, the first thing the lawyer is going to do is look up your property records. And if they see that you own property, oh yeah, let's sue them because I know I can get the money. I know they have money to get. If they don't have any property records and they're like, you know what, I don't know if this person owns anything, I'm not going to take this case on, because by the time we find out, they may own nothing and I wasted all my time. And so owning real estate on the public records makes you a target. And so that's the second use case, is if you own real estate, even just your home, and you don't want to be on the public records, you can set up the trust in a way where you are not on the public records at all. That's the second most common use case, because that doesn't just help you when you die or you become incapacitated. That helps you today. That helps you become private today.
When you are going to market, we talked about building out the sales team and all of that before. Is this a direct-to-consumer product, or are you going through third parties again? How are you thinking of getting people to use this and to trust it?
So we're getting about 2,500 people a month signing up right now. Where we're getting them from, a significant portion are coming from word of mouth. We always wanted that to be our number one acquisition channel. We want people to tell their friends and family about it. We kind of manufacture word of mouth in many ways, but we're doing a lot on short form video. So we have our channels. I have my own personal channel on TikTok, and I never had been a social media person, but now I'm doing TikTok videos. But I haven't even done that many. I've only done like 10, and I had one of them that hit like 400,000 organic impressions. And like every time we do those videos, like we get dumped on with customers. We had one video that we did on our company page that got like 3 million impressions organically. And so, at this point, like we spent a lot of time and energy in figuring out short form video, because we knew that like we're not going to be a company that spends money on advertising. Like we need to be figuring out like the best organic ways to grow. And there's nothing more organic than like a viral TikTok video. Like it is wonderful. Like you can put 5 minutes into it and it can go viral and put 1 million people see it. And you have thousands of people liking it, and you have like, it's a really incredible way to spread awareness.
So you are selling a financial product, or like a legal financial product, which if I were to rewind back 20 years would be really difficult to sell, right? You need a lot of people in suits and contracts, and everyone in the process generally feels bad about their life trying to get this to happen. I'm sure that customer acquisition costs for, setting up an estate or setting up a trust are really, really high. But here you figured out a formula in short form video that is getting millions of views. What can you share with us about kind of that marketing hack? Like, how did you make it so interesting and attractive to people that they want to engage in it?
I think we're fortunate to have really interesting content if you frame it correctly. And it's like, here's what the rich do to reduce their taxes. Here's why Donald Trump was able to file bankruptcy 6 times and he's still rich, right? And so I think it's, especially if you lean into like polarizing subjects like Donald Trump, and there's other examples that you talk about, Elon Musk, polarizing. You got people that like it, people don't like it. And what ends up happening is a lot of people end up commenting, and those comments help it go viral. And so I think like with anything else, there's a formula, and you just need to learn that formula, and it just takes practice. And the more that you learn it, the more successful you become. And so we're still in the early days, but I think as far as customer acquisition goes, like this is our number one method for customer acquisition for top of funnel free customers.
How long did it take you to squeeze out that magic and figure out what the formula is to frame this product?
It wasn't until we partnered with a YouTuber who really showed us the power of short form video by talking about us on his page. And it was for us so far, it's been like the closest thing that I could compare to Carta, like our Fred Wilson moment. Like he talked about us, and we had a step function in growth. And then we had a podcaster talk about us, and like we had a step function, and we're like, okay, these channels are like powerful. How can we control our own outcome by creating our own audiences? So then we started really leading into the creator. So we have both sides. We have the influencer partner side, and then we have our direct production side. And it's still a work in progress, but we've done really well on both. Like we're building our own, like our Instagram page is like, I don't know how many, 60, 70,000 followers now. And, TikTok doesn't have as many followers, but, we learned that TikTok followers don't matter as much, because TikTok, you can go viral without followers. Because I think the difference is when you use TikTok, most people are not seeing the people that they follow. You're on there to see random content. And so anything can go viral, versus on Instagram, on Reels, most people just see their followers. And so it's harder to like go viral beyond your followers. And so, yeah, just a lot of time and a lot of effort and a lot of trial and error. And, we're not done yet. We still have a lot more to go, but it's been a very effective channel for us.
How did you build that team? I'm just thinking about all these potential fintechs that are still trying to figure out Google Ads. Like, how did you build that team? What's the DNA of the team that knows how to do like organic Gen Z type, short reel type of content?
Yeah, so very, very, you can waste a lot of money on a lot of poor quality creators. I think this is the hardest part, like getting somebody who knows how to do it to help you do it. It's a very important part because you can get a lot of the wrong people. I think that there's a lot of agencies out there. We can do short form videos for you. We can do this, we can do that, but doing it right, the actors are very important. And so we studied a lot about what's the language app? Duolingo. I'm not sure if you've seen any of there's like case studies on their growth and how they did it using short form video, TikTok. They did it with they were wearing mascot outfits and so there's a lot on that. And so we studied that a lot. And there's other examples. Basically, the most important thing we did was just looked at other companies that are successful at this, and we dug into how they did it, and then from there it was just trial and error, and just trying to find people to help us. And there's a lot of experts out there that say they can help with this type of thing, but you need to keep going through them until you find somebody that actually can. I think the most important thing is you have to connect with the vision of the company. That's the most important thing.
You went outside and try to find people who they're able to attract attention, and then that you figured out a way to work with them.
Yeah. So actors, right? So there's two parts to creating a short form video. There's a script and then there's the actor. And so scripts there's a formula for that. And we have a whole bunch of I have a spreadsheet. It's on hooks and how to create hooks. And then there's TikTok SEO, the words you use. And then there's be polarizing, be polarizing in the hook, and then have interesting content, educate people. There's all these different ways to go viral. Use celebrities. And so the scripts are one part. You got to write really good scripts. And that's hard. That's very hard. But the other part is finding an actor that can have conviction when speaking the script. That's very hard as well. And so that's why I've kind of taken it on my side a bit, where I'm I need to figure out how to do this myself. I'm the founder, and because at first we're just oh, I'll hire somebody to do it. We hired somebody. It worked a little bit, but the more that it worked, we knew that there's a lot more potential here. Let's dig into it. And that's why I was okay, I saw an example of another company that's founder led. The founder has a TikTok page, is the actor, and it's got millions of impressions every single video. And I was this is what I need to try to do. And so that's why I started building my own page. And my own page is not huge. Like I said, I have done 10 to 12 videos, but I figured out a formula where I can get, like I said, I got one that was 400,000 views. But on average, I can get over 20,000 views now. And so I think, when we're ready to really lean into it, I'm going to spend a lot more time on that page personally. And I think the founder speaking helps me. I have more conviction naturally. What we're working on right now is not necessarily trying to explode the top of funnel. Right now, we're working on delivery. We're delivering these directed trusts. We have enough demand right now, and we're just perfecting the experience and the product for our customers.
Awesome. Thank you for opening up how that works. And I think it's fascinating, your intuition for getting to where the demand is, and whether that's a sales go-to-market motion or a marketing or a social media go-to-market motion. I think it's pretty impressive how you're able to open that up. In terms of the product and the technology around the business, is there anything you can share with us in terms of the engineering that goes into being able to automate these trusts? I had the pleasure of going to law school, and one of the things that I was told is that nobody can practice law other than licensed lawyers, which means everything has to be on paper and signed in blood with feathers. So how do you engineer yourself into an answer here, and what needs to happen?
Yeah, it's very, very hard. We spent the first 2 years like doing zero go to market, and we were kind of just figuring out how to build what we wanted to build and how to get around the legal gray areas, how to really navigate them and always be on the side of being conservative with what we're doing. And we had a lot of experience doing that at Carta too. As I mentioned, the law firm said we were illegal in the beginning. We had to navigate that. And it's similar to your point. Like everything in this space is on paper, and so how do we digitize it? That's one whole side of it. We had to spend a lot of time of like figuring out like the laws and the precedents and where we can take risk and where we can't. And then on the other side of it, you have the actual templates. And so, for the trust documents, you turn them into templated documents so that way customers can just fill in the blank and we can automate the trust creation. Those templates, the simple trust, like that's easy. Anybody can go to LegalZoom or Rocket Lawyer or wherever, name your online provider, and you can create a simple trust. But when it comes to the complex trust, you want to protect assets or you want to reduce taxes. None of the online providers do those trusts. And so you're told in the very beginning when we started thinking about this from lawyers, like you can't automate it. It's way too complex. These trusts are way too complex. But I'm like, wait a second, you use a template, right? I'm like, how do you create your trust? And like, they have a software that they use, they have a template. I'm like, why can't we use a template too then? Why does this have to be a lawyer? And I think the biggest thing in this space is that, the way LegalZoom was able to kind of pioneer this space with simple trusts and simple wills was that they, it's do it yourself. There's you go in, it's self-serve, and you fill out your own documents. And so that's the approach that, we take. It's do it yourself. There's no hand holding. There's no legal advice. If you need legal advice, you need to see an attorney. We are not an attorney, and we're very explicit when you sign up. We are not an attorney. If you need legal advice, go see a lawyer. And so once you do that, then, the challenge becomes, how do you explain this product in such a simple way, do it yourself, that like people can do it and sign it and feel comfortable with it without needing to talk to somebody? We're still working on that. Like, how do we completely simplify things? And it's definitely a challenge. But I would say that's where the challenge lies. It's on more of the product side and the experience and the way we educate people and navigating the legal complexities and the template documents and the laws and the regulations. But it's less of, and maybe my co-founder, who's head of engineering, may disagree, maybe, but feels like less of an engineering challenge and more of a product and go-to-market challenge.
Thank you for sharing a couple of really fascinating anecdotes. And I know that our audience will learn a lot from you and your journey. If they want to check out the company or learn more about you, where should they go?
GetDynasty.com to learn about the company. And if you want to learn more about me, find me on LinkedIn, Alessandro Chesser, or I mentioned I have that TikTok page. Check it out. I think I call it Sandro Says. But we also have our company pages as well. So yeah, check us out on short form video, Instagram or TikTok, or find me on LinkedIn.
Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Hi, everyone. That's it for this week's episode of the Fintech Blueprint. For more technical deep dives into all things fintech and decentralized finance, check out fintechblueprint.com and grab a free subscription to the newsletter. This is Lex, and I'll see you next time.